One day at the cafe, the boss mentions that she is already tired after a day off at work, and that maybe tomorrow she will need a massage before going to work. Yoon asks if she shouldn't take more days off, but his boss replies that if she did, she would surely lose money. The boy, upon hearing that, comments that she will surely die thinking about money. However, his boss doesn't care and responds that running out of money scares her more than death. Immediately, she asks what he thinks about Shin Young and adds that, although she has only been working there for 2 months, she considers her efficient. She also highlights that she has a cheerful personality, is good at serving customers, and is also very friendly. Yoon responds that she still hasn't memorized all the recipes, to which his boss replies that it's understandable since she hired her in a rush. Even so, she is glad that he is there with her. She adds that without him, she wouldn't be at ease and that he is the only part-time employee she can trust to manage the cafe. The young man blushes and asks why she says that so suddenly. But Yojo looks at him with admiration and immediately changes the subject to ask if he will be busy on his next day off. Yoon thinks for a moment and replies that he doesn't have much to do. That's when his boss suggests they should go eat some meat. Immediately, she clarifies that it's her way of thanking him since she knows he suffered a lot yesterday. Upon hearing that, Yoon responds that if that's the case, she could thank him in cash, which annoys his boss since she has already paid him his entire salary. However, suddenly she changes her attitude and asks him to accompany her for a drink because besides that, she also wants to eat some meat. He, with few options, accepts with resignation and tells her that if that's what she wants, they can grill meat at his house. But she insists on going to a restaurant, arguing that it would be pathetic to eat alone and that it is very depressing to be at home, eating meat and washing dishes without company. Remembering how she used to complain when she did that at home, lamenting not having a wealthy life, she insists again that they should go eat together. The young man reflects for a moment and realizing that he is not busy, decides to accept. Then he asks where they are going, but just at that moment his boss notices something strange. That catches the boy's attention, and he watches her curiously. However, the woman asks him to watch the counter for a second before leaving the place. On the other hand, in the cafe, there was someone familiar, Hyun Jae, who was listening to music on his phone. He reflected that the version mixed by his studio engineer of the collaborative song was more complete overall. However, he considered that the version mixed by Hayne wasn't bad. He thought it had a slightly rough sound, but each instrument contributed its own unique touch, creating the retro feel of Long Afternoon and a distinctive sense of space. After analyzing it, he wondered what he should do. He confessed that he loved both versions, making it difficult to decide. Finally, he concluded that he would have to go back to his studio and listen to them again on his monitors. However, when he took off his headphones, he heard something. Looking back, he saw that someone was taking pictures of him. That made him wonder if someone had just taken a picture of him in secret. Although it wasn't the first time it had happened, he still felt embarrassed when it did. He reflected that he would prefer if they approached him and took a photo with him. Or perhaps he thought they didn't want a photo with him but were simply interested in other people's private lives. Then, he stood up and said he didn't mind, but he didn't want to cause trouble in the cafe. So he decided to leave for the moment. Just at that moment, Yojo stepped in front of the girl and asked her to wait a moment. He informed her that the rules stated that filming other customers was not allowed, but the person taking photos or recording replied that they weren't filming another customer but rather a TV celebrity. But the owner responded that famous or not, anyone who enters her cafe is a customer, and she asked if they could stop doing that. Then, the girl stood up and replied that she also had the right to express her opinion since she was also a customer. She then asked if it was okay for a cafe worker to act that way toward a customer. Unfazed, the owner coldly responded and asked if she had ordered anything. She added that, in general, she didn't say anything to those who sat without ordering, but she admitted that she couldn't stand seeing someone bothering other customers. She demanded that the girl at least order a drink or leave. That made the woman a bit nervous. Without another word, she left the place and threatened to destroy the business online. She claimed she would spread everything on social media and drive them out of the market. Before leaving, she cursed. Without getting upset, he simply replied that it was fine, thanked her, and said goodbye. Hyunjae thanked the cafe owner and apologized for causing so much trouble. However, the woman replied that there was always noise in a cafe and that it was part of the business. She told him not to worry and to come back whenever he wanted, as she didn't care whether he was famous or not. Immediately, she asked if he liked cappuccinos with a friendly tone. After being speechless for a moment, he replied that he did, so she offered him one. After tasting it, Hyunjae said it was the best cappuccino he had ever had, and shortly after, he left the establishment. As he walked, he commented that the whole thing had been annoying and that being famous must be exhausting since he always ended up getting into trouble. For her part, Yoon told her boss that she had done a good job since she managed to retain their regular customer and get rid of the troublesome person. Then she confessed that she was a genius. But the owner replied that she wasn't a genius and that she simply couldn't stand by and do nothing. She explained that ignoring those situations would only make her life miserable. Changing the subject, she brought up the invitation to eat meat again and admitted that she was craving beef. Yoon, sighing, replied that they would go and that surely her boss couldn't wait to eat. Her boss confirmed her words and informed her that they would meet at 7. Then, that day arrived, and Yoon was waiting for her boss. While looking at her phone, she reflected that it was almost time for summer internships and that she still hadn't visited any companies. She supposed she would have to wait a little longer for that. However, after thinking about it a bit more, she wondered why she was overthinking it and considered that it wasn't urgent. She thought that there was no need to put too much pressure on herself and that the job search was still going according to plan. That is, of course, unless she got sidetracked while checking job listings on her phone. To distract herself, she decided to listen to Long Afternoon, a new song she loved and that also relaxed her. But just before doing so, something caught her attention. She wondered what it was, and upon noticing the indie music recommendation list in the app, she realized that the album cover was different. At that moment, her boss arrived and commented that she had arrived early. Turning around, Yoon noticed that she was accompanied by Shin Young. Surprised, she confessed that she didn't know Shin Young was coming with them. Her boss replied that Shin Young had also worked hard that day and that they should give her some meat to eat. That made the girl even happier. "Shin Young, by the way," greeted Yoon, and she greeted her back. Thus, her boss started a barbecue, cheering everyone on as she added that today's goal was to eat an entire beef. She also commented that it had been a long time since they had eaten something like that, so they wouldn't go home until they were completely full. Yoon was surprised by that side of her boss, and even more so when Shin Young took her by the arm and insisted that they eat right. She mentioned that she hadn't eaten beef in a long time either. Yoon nodded and said they were going, although in her mind she couldn't help but wonder why Shin Young had suddenly grabbed her arm. It felt strange. However, she decided that the only thing she would think about today was enjoying the beef. Meanwhile, in a music store, Hayne was writing something. As he did, he thought that it didn't sound good at all and wondered if it was the rhythm or perhaps simply because he was hungry. Already at the restaurant, the group is grilling the meat when Yojo exclaims that it is delicious. She considers that when she is tired, there is nothing better than a juicy beefsteak. She asks them to eat quickly, but before she finishes speaking, her workers are already devouring everything. Excited, Yojo asks the waiter for a bottle of soju, but Yoon looks at her with concern and asks if she is not overdoing it, reminding her that she recently had a hangover. Her boss confidently responds that she is fine. Poison is fought with poison and alcohol with more alcohol. However, the young man replies that such a saying does not exist. Moreover, he suggests that she eat in moderation since she has no one to take care of her. To which Yojo replies that he is there. Unmoved, Yoon firmly replies that he has no intention of taking care of her. That small argument seems to catch Shin Young's attention, who watches them with a certain admiration. Immediately, she comments that the two get along very well and asks if they knew each other before. Yojo shakes her head and explains that they have simply worked together for a long time. Additionally, she mentions that they occasionally had meals together since both live alone. That is why, on their days off, she would call him to go out and hang out. Shin Young seems surprised and, after a brief pause, asks if they are dating or something similar. Upon hearing that, Yoon spits out his drink and with evident nervousness, asks what she is talking about. Quickly, he hurries to clarify that they only eat together, nothing more. Shin Young responds that it is just a man and a woman eating alone, to which the boy states that this does not mean it is something romantic. However, Yojo mentions that it was, and that she was the one who flirted with Yoon. She adds that he played hard to get and that it was annoying. The boy asks her not to make up things that never happened. The woman apologizes but continues laughing. Then Shin Young looks at him and asks if he lives alone, moving a little closer as she inquires if he has a partner. Yoon replies that yes, he lives alone and does not have a partner. However, his boss highlights that he has someone he likes. Shin Young becomes excited with this information and asks if it is true, who it is, and whether it is someone she knows. Curious, she questions whether it is Ju-yeon from the morning shift. But Yoon, confused, asks who that is since he does not even know the morning shift staff. It is then that he mentions that it is just someone he frequently crosses paths with and that he does not even have her number, so he would not say it is something romantic. However, he lowers his gaze and reflects. If asked what kind of relationship they have, he would say she is someone he wants to keep talking to. Shin Young observes him more closely, and noticing that his glass is empty, asks if he wants another round. Yoon nods and thanks her. But suddenly, his boss startles them by questioning whether they do not see that her glass is also empty. He demands to be served quickly and declares that today they will drink until they die. Shin Young likes the idea, but Yoon comments that this won't happen since he doesn't want to die. Meanwhile, in the music studio, Hayne is playing the guitar a little. She feels that something is off and that the song's progression is too predictable. She wonders if she should change the structure of the pre-chorus. Just at that moment, her uncle enters the room, calling her and asking if she wants to go out for dinner tonight. Seeing her, he stops and asks what she is doing on the floor of the practice room, wondering if she is rehearsing a performance. The girl replies that they are planning to do a live performance and questions what kind of performance she could be rehearsing. She then clarifies that she was simply lying on the floor because she couldn't get the compositions to come out. Her uncle comments that it's strange since she hasn't had a creative block in a long time, as she usually writes lyrics effortlessly. Hayne admits that sometimes this happens and that she can't always do everything with the same ease. Moreover, this time, she confesses that she doesn't know why, but she wants to write the song with more seriousness. And it's taking her uncle with a sympathetic look stands up and asks if she would like to go out for a meal to clear her mind a little. Hayne hesitates for a moment and asks what will happen with this. The man responds that the guys practicing are his friends, so he'll tell them he's going out to eat, and they will surely take care of everything. He insists that she should go out and clear her mind a bit, as well as see some people, since he believes that this might help her come up with new ideas for the song. She thinks about it for a moment before accepting, and her uncle mentions that they will decide on the menu along the way. Later at night, Yojo is somewhat drunk and with a bottle of alcohol in hand, mentions that she feels lonely. Yoon, somewhat confused, asks her what's wrong, as she was just saying she wanted to eat beef and now she's complaining. Her boss responds that she complains because she is alone and that when she returns home, she will be alone again. She confesses that sometimes she thinks maybe she shouldn't have gotten divorced. To this, Yoon replies that she is bringing this up again and that they had already promised not to have those regrets. The boss apologizes and has an idea. She asks why they don't go to a whiskey bar for a second round, assuring them that she will pay. Yoon, always responsible, states that he has class early the next day and that this is as far as he goes. Shin-young also decides to stop, commenting that he has eaten too much. Yojo, upon hearing them, calls them boring and mentions that she was going to treat them to expensive liquor. Nonetheless, she doesn't want to cancel her plan, so she decides to go alone. This worries Yoon, who asks if she is sure about drinking alone. Yojo responds that she will be fine since she is friends with the bar owner. Then she bids them farewell, wishing them a safe return home. Yoon comments that he is worried she might pass out again, but that doesn't seem to matter to Shin-young, who looks at him with a certain hidden intention. Then he takes her by the arm and asks where they are going now, leaving Yoon confused. Shin-young mentions that there is a draft beer bar nearby and asks if they can go there for just one drink. Yoon reminds her that she said she was full, but the girl replies that she only said that because if he wasn't going, she wouldn't go either. Additionally, she adds that she wanted to talk a little more with him and asks if he would accept having just one drink before returning to their respective. Yoon hesitates and says that he is actually a bit tired. Shin-young observes him for a moment and then asks if he is thinking about that person he says he has something with. In the end, she states that it's just a something, not even a confession or an official relationship. She adds that if he takes it too seriously, he'll only end up hurting himself, and that the person he says he has something with might just be playing with him. Then she questions if that isn't the case. Yoon looks at her in silence for a moment and responds that even if it is as she says, and if that person is only playing with him, he wants to show that he is serious, pulling away from the arms she had around him. He states that when he likes someone, he prefers to be direct, even if in the end, his heart gets broken. Even if he ends up devastated. He asks that they only drink at work gatherings and apologizes. That leaves Shin-young speechless, but then a proud smile forms on her face as she states that he is a good guy before taking his arm again. She asks him not to feel so bad and assures him that she just wanted to be a true friend, adding that they will drink together when they are with the boss. Yoon understands but asks why she is still holding on to his arm. She responds that it's just a habit of hers. She even does it with the boss. However, Yoon states that it makes him feel a little uncomfortable, but Shin-young asks him to let her stay like that until the corner. The young man thinks that she is completely drunk, and for that reason, he concludes that taking care of drunk people is the most complicated thing. However, on the other side of the street, he sees something. It's Hayne, who is accompanied by her uncle, although he doesn't know that. For her part, she looks at him, noticing that he is accompanied by a girl she doesn't know. That makes her somewhat nervous, and just before they continue looking at each other, the traffic light changes, and several cars start passing by, blocking. Yoon wonders if it was really Hayne he just saw, and questions who the person with their hand on her shoulder is, believing it might be her boyfriend. On the other hand, Hayne wonders if the person Yoon is linking arms with could be his girlfriend. But before her thoughts go further, it is explained that Hayne informed her uncle that she saw a good restaurant nearby on the map. The man, somewhat annoyed, warns her not to look at her phone while walking, as it can be dangerous. She asks him to take her arm while she guides him with the map. In a place where the waves rise imposingly, a small version of Yoon desperately struggles to stay afloat. His arms flail clumsily as the water engulfs him, his voice breaking into a cry for help, pleading for someone to rescue him. He begs to be saved, as he does not know how to swim. The current mercilessly drags him, pushing him in different directions as his desperation increases. Each passing second feels eternal, and his pleas are lost in the sound of the raging sea. But suddenly, the scene dissolves. It was not real. Yoon was not in the water but submerged in his thoughts while preparing a drink. With a vacant stare, he stirs the liquid in the glass without even realizing it. It is then that his boss bursts into his reverie, calling his attention with an impatient tone. She asks if he has already prepared the 2 glasses of Blue Moon for customer 13. The young man blinks, abruptly returning to reality, and responds that he has not yet done so. His answer provokes a sigh of frustration from Yojo, who furrows her brow and questions him severely. She wants to know exactly what he is doing and why he is taking so long if he is supposed to be a beverage artisan. Yoon hurriedly apologizes and assures that he will prepare it immediately, but his boss snorts and orders him to leave it. She will handle it herself. Moreover, she tells him to take out the trash to clear his head a little. Before he can say anything else, she warns him that if he comes back and zones out again, she will punch him. Then, with a sharp look, she asks if he has understood. The young man quickly nods, apologizes once more, and leaves without daring to add anything else. Outside, after disposing of the trash in its proper place, he wonders why he has been so distracted all day. He also has to write his autobiography, but he has made no progress. He always ends up lost in his thoughts, unable to concentrate. It is then that he remembers that day, the day he saw Hayne with someone else, sharing physical contact that was too affectionate. He believes they must be dating. He remains silent for a few seconds, and gradually, his anger begins to grow. He cannot help but remember that she had told him she was not seeing anyone. Now he feels that once again, he was the only one being sincere. He relives every moment shared with Hayne, and his rage intensifies to the point that without thinking, he kicks the trash. Instantly, he realizes what he has done. He sighs, looks at the mess he made, and without saying anything, crouches down to pick up what he knocked. As he does, he reflects. He wonders if his anger truly comes from what others do, or if, deep down, it is his own heart that betrays him. After all, he had said that just seeing her and talking to her would make him happy. However, now he faces a desire he cannot ignore. He wants to have her only for himself. It was still nighttime, but somewhere else. More precisely, in the recording studio. Hayne was listening to a song when Sung Hyun-jae asked her what she thought of the new mix, mentioning that his engineer had worked on it all night based on the version she had made. The girl responded dismissively, saying it was fine and that it sounded good. Hyun-jae, noticing her attitude, mentioned that he had something he had made as a test and asked if she would like to listen to it. He explained that he had tried to highlight the long afternoon part more to give it a different nuance. She, without much interest, replied that he could do whatever he wanted since she trusted his work. Even if she didn't say anything, she was sure he would do it well. He looked at her again and noticed something in her expression. After a few seconds of silence, he asked her to wait a moment. Then, in a more serious tone, he asked her not to act that way. He reminded her that no matter how she felt, the work had to be taken seriously. If music were just a hobby for her, he would understand. But this song carried the effort of many people. He mentioned the musicians from the Long Afternoon Band, the engineers, and the staff coordinating the project. Additionally, he warned her that if they did things halfway, all the effort of those who had helped them would be in vain. He asked her to stay focused until the end, as if they failed. The weight of that failure would fall on him. Hayne looked at him for a moment before lowering her gaze. Then, in a softer tone, she apologized, admitting that she was a little distracted. Hyun-jae observed her with a bit more confidence. With a firm voice, he stated that she was right because those harsh words were what he would say as a producer in such a situation. However, this time he would ask a different question. He leaned in a little closer and, with a more personal tone, asked if something was wrong. He had noticed that throughout the day, her expression reflected concern. Hayne remained silent for a moment, reflecting before responding that it was nothing. However, as soon as she uttered those words, her mind betrayed her, and the memory of Yoon suddenly overwhelmed her. That image filled her with frustration and sadness, making her expression reflect those emotions. Finally, unable to contain herself any longer, she suddenly stood up and raised her voice with force, vehemently declaring that she was very angry. Hyunjae observed her in surprise, not fully understanding her reaction. His confusion grew when she, with a furrowed brow and an intense gaze, bitterly stated that she didn't understand people. Still confused, he asked what exactly she was trying to say. Hayne pressed her lips together before replying coldly. She explained that people were unreliable, that in front of her they insisted enthusiastically, like an eager puppy ready to go for a walk, but behind her back, they acted completely differently, revealing their true nature. Deep down, she wanted to believe that there was someone incapable of betraying her. But even as she expressed her thoughts, she realized she had no right to make that claim. She was aware of it. She understood. But even so, she couldn't help feeling that way. Hyunjae observed her carefully, and after thinking for a moment, advised her that when meeting someone, she shouldn't dive too deeply into that relationship, no matter who it was. Then, in a calm voice, he told her that other people's hearts were like the bottom of a river. Sometimes we think we know its depth, but in reality, we have no certainty. And if we jump into the water convinced that it's deep, but it turns out to be shallower than we imagined, the only one who will get hurt is ourselves. Hayne remained silent, absorbing his words. He continued speaking with the same calmness as before and explained that, for this reason, it was best to approach others with moderate trust and low expectations. When we expect too much, we end up creating a mistaken image of the other person, and that only leads to disappointment. Hyunjae's words resonated within her. She knew he was right. No matter how much she tried to cling to her expectations, reality would always prove that others would never act as she wanted. That uncertainty was what scared her. That's why she hid behind Yoon as a way to protect herself, to avoid getting hurt. But then her mind returned to Yoon. She wondered if, after all, what she really wanted was a superficial relationship without complications or risks. She clenched her fists, feeling frustration consume her. She was upset, angry at herself, at others, at everything. There were so many things she wanted to say, so many emotions boiling inside her, but in the end, the only thing she allowed herself to admit was an absurd thought. Because despite everything, she still wanted to see that stupid face. And so, at the subway, Yoon arrived and in front of him, he saw Han. He noticed that she was standing on the platform instead of sitting on the bench as usual. He thought that meant it was okay not to talk to her anymore, that he didn't have to approach or speak to her. He also thought it was because she had a boyfriend. With that idea in mind, he made a decision, and walking past her thought it was fine, that there was no point in clinging pathetically to her. They wouldn't see each other anymore, so there was no reason to insist. However, just as he was about to walk away, he found himself face to face with her. With an expressionless face but a mask of indifference, she asked him to talk for a bit. Hayne looked at him with curiosity, and, in a serious tone, he didn't beat around the bush. He directly asked if she had a boyfriend. Hayne was surprised by the question and, somewhat confused, responded that she had already told him she didn't have a boyfriend. Still, Yoon insisted, he stated that he had seen her walking with a man, his arm over her shoulders. He looked at her intently and asked if that man wasn't her boyfriend. Hayne recalled that day and without hesitation responded that it was probably her uncle. Yoon looked at her with a mix of mockery and disbelief. He questioned whether she really thought he would buy that excuse, doubting she had such a young uncle. Ask again if he is telling the truth and if he thinks he is a fool. That angers Hayne, who without thinking throws the question back at him. She wants to know if he has a girlfriend since last time she saw a woman walking arm in arm with him. Yoon also remembers that day. He explains that it was probably a coworker. But Hayne is not convinced. With an accusatory tone, she comments that it seems like he walks arm in arm with any woman he knows. Then, with a hint of irony, she asks if he thinks he is the lead singer of the Rolling Stones. He sighs and shakes his head. He tells her that she was the one who took his arm on her own. Hayne crosses her arms and challenges him with her gaze. She asks if going out alone on a date was also something she did on her own. Yoon denies it again. He responds that it was not a date, but a company dinner. But Hayne does not give up. She tells him that no one calls a solo outing a company dinner. Yoon insists that it was not like that. He explains that originally the boss was there. As the discussion progresses, they both start arguing. In the end, Hayne sighs and decides to put an end to the conversation. She says it's fine, that they should stop talking about it. After all, he does not believe her, so there is no point in continuing the argument. Looking at him wearily, she asks why they should keep talking about it if it is just a waste of time. Upon hearing those words, Yoon feels his chest tighten. He remains silent for a moment until he finally murmurs that she is right. Then, in a lower voice, he asks if that is what she really thinks. He wants to know if she truly believes that all of this is a waste of time. Just at that moment, the train is arriving. Hayne looks at him seriously and responds that she did not mean it that way. Yoon watches her for a few seconds and, in a firm tone, asks her to spend the night with him. Before she can react, he suddenly grabs her by the shoulders. He adds that he will prove to her that he is a sincere person. His words leave her confused, but what unsettles her the most is what he just said, because he said he is going to prove something. At another moment, Yojo is deep in thought about a big decision while looking at the fridge. She wonders if she should get 2 cans of beer or a 4-pack. Then she questions if it might be better to get bottled beer, leaving her in doubt about what to do. She thinks that bottled beer is the best choice to watch the new romantic drama by Kim Yoon, and admits to herself that her mind goes blank just thinking about the lead actor. In the end, she decides to take just 1 can. But before going to pay, she looks at it and reflects that she drank yesterday, so she should skip it today. She reveals that for her, hangovers seem to last longer these days, and she feels her stomach turn. On her way home, she thinks it's sad to keep getting older, since, even though she has money, she can't spend it as she likes. It's then that she hears someone calling her. Turning around, she sees that it's Yoon, who is accompanied by Hayne. Upon seeing him, Yojo asks what he's doing there and if he missed the last train, so he had to come back. However, he responds that it's not that. He just needs to check something. He then introduces Hayne, his boss and the owner of the cafe where he works part-time. The girl, a bit embarrassed, greets her, and the boss responds with a greeting as well. Meanwhile, Yojo wonders what's going on and why this girl is here, assuming she might be the one Yoon likes, or, more precisely, the one he mentioned meeting on the last train. Yojo thinks she's not the type she expected, but acknowledges that she's pretty and is sure Yoon is attracted to her. It's then that Yoon asks his boss if they didn't have dinner the other night. She responds that they did, and that she took him and Shin-young to eat meat. The young man mentions that Shin-young was with them, and knowing that, he wants to ask something about her, questioning if she is just a coworker who ate with him. His boss, upon hearing this, wonders what kind of question that is. She considers that he wanted to know what she was doing there, but now she has a pretty good idea. So, she answers that yes, she is just a coworker, and it's the only time they've spoken. She explains that they see each other almost every day, but only talk for about 10 minutes when they leave. Hayne becomes thoughtful, as if the answer makes her feel bad about the accusations she had been making about Yoon. It's then that Yolo, with an unforgettable expression, informs them that they don't have a relationship. However, Hayne reveals that when she saw them, they were arm in arm. Yolo, hearing this, explains that the girl has a very kind personality, so she's very clingy. Even when she's alone with her, she always tries to wrap her arms around her. Yoon mentions that even when they were heading home together, she wouldn't stop crossing her arms and had told her not to do that. Yolo admits it's true and thinks it's a habit of hers. It's then that the young man looks at Hayne, making their gazes meet. She finally says that, if that's the case, she will believe it. Something he appreciates, letting out a sigh of relief. On the other hand, Yolo watches them for a moment and then asks if they want him to take them. He explains that the bus and subway are closed at this time of night, so there's no way to get to their homes. Therefore, he can drive them. Yoon replies that that would be great and thanks him, but Hayne declines, saying they're going somewhere else now. This leaves the young man confused, but the girl says that he and she will go together, as it's her turn to prove it this time. This takes him by surprise, but Hayne apologizes to Yolo for wasting his time, something that the boss responds to by saying it's fine. Immediately, the girl asks Yoon to accompany her, and they both start walking away from Yolo, who silently bids them farewell before watching them with the same stillness. She reflects that, on second thought, she'll only drink one today since she doesn't want to lose that comforting feeling. Still nighttime, somewhere else, someone is playing something, or more precisely, losing at the game. It was Hayne's uncle who wondered why this game was so hard when theoretically it shouldn't be. He had a character as a companion, supposedly the strongest class, but he couldn't even use his powers, leading him to conclude that he couldn't do anything. Then, the doorbell rings, and the man wonders who could be ringing at this hour. He opens the door, and seeing Hayne, asks who the guy accompanying her is and what she's doing there. The girl informs him that she wants to ask her uncle something and questions if she's not his niece. The man, upon hearing this, replies that yes, unless she fell and hit her head, but still wants to know why she's asking him that. She explains that the guy keeps asking if he's her boyfriend. Her uncle, surprised, wonders what he might have done to cause such a misunderstanding and admits that he feels embarrassed about it. However, he jokes that maybe it's because he's been with her for so long. Hayne laughs and responds that it's funny and that if that's the case, he should look like an older boyfriend. They both start arguing in a friendly manner, while Yoon watches them in silence, remembering the day he saw them for the first time. He notices the family relationship they share, and after that, he smiles slightly, feeling the urge to laugh a little and the relief of understanding the misunderstanding. Then, the uncle turns to the young man and asks who he is and why he made such a mistake. Finally, he directly asks him if he could be Hayne's boyfriend. Yoon feels a bit nervous and replies that it's not like that. He was just wondering why. Hayne starts hitting her uncle, telling him not to say nonsense. She asks him to go back inside and get some sleep since they're done here. Her uncle responds that it's fine, but then asks how they're going to get home, as the roads are all cut off. Hayne replies that they'll figure something out, that they'll take a taxi or walk. Her uncle questions the idea of taking a taxi at this hour, pointing out that they'll charge extra. But his niece mentions that they can also walk. Her uncle thinks for a moment and asks why they don't just wait there for a while, informing them that he'll drive them. Hayne, hearing this, asks how he could do that if he doesn't have a car. However, her uncle replies that he can borrow one, which his niece questions, asking where he would get one at this hour. The man answers that he knows some people in the neighborhood. He then leaves and says he'll go borrow a car, telling them to come down when he calls them. Hayne tries to ask him to wait, but the man has already left, leaving them alone. The girl apologizes for him, saying he's very stubborn. The young man replies that it's fine and that he's really grateful for her help. They leave the conversation at that and stay silent. Then, Yoon admits that he doesn't know what to say and that, upon thinking about it, it was all his fault. He shouldn't have brought his doubts this far, as he's been running around causing problems. He admits that he's not even Hayne's boyfriend and that he's pathetic. It's then that the girl calls him and says that the night air is still cold. He replies that yes, it's still spring. She suggests making peace and then talking about something interesting again, extending her hand to him. Hayne admits that she wants to be in a warm room with him again, so they can talk about fun things. Yoon watches her closely. Haran asks what he is doing, why he is not holding her hand, and if they are not going to reconcile. He quickly responds yes and takes her hand, assuring her that he wants to make peace. Immediately, he apologizes for the misunderstanding, though he actually thinks he should have taken the initiative. He feels he should have cleared up the confusion and repaired the relationship. For her part, the girl apologizes for having doubted him. However, the young man keeps reflecting. He regrets having doubted himself about doing things right again. Then she calls him and comments that his hands are bigger than they seem. He looks at her and questions whether that is really the case, wondering if they are not just a normal size. She replies that she does not think so, as she considers them much larger than hers and asks him to compare them. He looks at them and confirms that her hands are smaller. She clarifies that it is not that she has small hands, but that his are very large. Yoon, somewhat surprised, asks how she can play the guitar with such small hands and adds that they are very soft. Hayne, amused, questions whether that is a compliment, and then explains that the guitar has a different structure, which allows her to play an octave without hurting herself. She also mentions that on the piano, she can play an octave without straining her hand too much. This seems to impress Yoon. While she watches him, he mentions that he also played the piano when he was a child. Then Hayne asks if he does not want to come in and wait. She adds that he can sit and chat as usual, at least until her uncle arrives. He responds that it's fine, and before entering, Yoon asks what her uncle does. She tells him that he is the boss at the studio where she works. Curious, the young man asks if it is a family business, but Hayne replies that it is just a bit dependent. Once inside the apartment, she asks him to sit on the couch while she goes to find something to drink. However, she starts searching for something to drink, as she does not know where the beverages are. Yoon, upon taking a better look at the apartment, comments that there are many band posters and several instruments. Then he remembers that Hayne's uncle used to be in a band. After that, he drops onto a beanbag. Noticing a video game console, he confesses that he has always wanted one of those. Then he reflects that Hayne used to talk a lot about her uncle and wonders if she visited him often. This sparks his curiosity about what she was like as a child. Meanwhile, Hayne continues searching for something to drink and wonders why there are so many food leftovers in the fridge. Back with Yoon, he starts imagining young Hayne and thinks that she must have been very beautiful. He believes she must have been quite popular, and at that moment, he wishes to see pictures of her as a student. At that instant, the girl returns and offers him something to drink. She comments that she searched around and only found warm apple juice. He thanks her as she sits beside him. Suddenly, Yoon notices something and asks why they are sitting so close. Hayne responds that it is not a big deal since there is only one couch. So, he moves slightly away and says that if that is the case, he will sit farther so she is more comfortable. She then asks him not to move, adding that it is more comfortable to lean on each other's shoulders. She also mentions that the couch is old and not very cushioned. With no other options, he decides to return to his previous position, ending up very close to her. Hayne, curious, asks if he does not find it more comfortable this way. Yoon replies that he does, so the girl mentions that the couch is so old that she cannot sit on it alone, as it is not balanced. That is why, when she visits her uncle, she always sits like that. Yoon feels that, once again, he is being guided. He knows it's his own fault for being there in the middle of the night and that he should be doing something more responsible. He is not only trying to break the ice, but also to get closer to her. She, noticing that he keeps looking at her intently, asks what's wrong and if she has something on her face. He replies that it's not that, but rather that he was thinking about how close she seems to be with her uncle, since they looked like good friends before. She nods and says yes, they are very close because her uncle took care of her when she was younger. She remembers that her only brother was studying, and due to their age difference, he didn't have time to be with her. Moreover, her parents worked a lot, so she was often left alone. Her uncle would always visit and play the guitar to keep her company. She adds that back then he was handsome, but now he is a full-grown adult, or almost one. Yoon replies that he is still handsome, but she denies it, commenting that he always stayed up late playing games, so he has more dark circles than eyes. In a moment of reflection, Yoon simply calls her Hayne. He adds that he would like to address her that way since it feels more natural than calling her Miss Hayne. She, intrigued, asks if that isn't normal. He replies that, as he mentioned before, it's better this way since they are closer, so they can do it. Then, he asks if she doesn't agree. Hayne responds that she doesn't know, but she liked it better before. However, the young man replies that he doesn't like it, and questions why they always have to do what she prefers. He expresses that he also wants to do what he likes. Hayne watches him for a moment and asks what's wrong with him, why such a sudden change. She accuses him of acting like a puppy and behaving unnecessarily cute. Finally, she gives in and accepts his request but warns him that he can only call her that 10 times. Then she asks if he agrees. He nods, satisfied. Immediately, he starts calling her Hayne repeatedly. She, bewildered, asks what he's doing and why he's saying all 10 times at once. He replies that she only mentioned he could say it 10 times and asks if she didn't want to hear it. She admits that she didn't, but that she simply feels a little embarrassed. She lowers her gaze, then looks at him and tells him that now it's his turn. Then she begins to say Yewoon's name several times, until he, surprised, asks what she's doing and why she's imitating him. She responds with a smile that she's just singing, nothing more. Leaning on his shoulder, she asks if he didn't want to hear her. He, noticing how close she is, responds that not in that way, and almost instinctively, hides. She looks at him curiously and asks if he is now the one hiding out of embarrassment. With a mischievous smile, she comments that now she knows how she felt. Yewoon, for his part, internally questions what's happening to him. He wonders if he is having inappropriate thoughts, but quickly tells himself no, that she just said his name. So he doesn't understand why he feels so excited. He repeats the same question to himself over and over again. Hayne watches him in silence, intrigued. Suddenly, she remembers the words of her music companion. When you meet someone, no matter how well you think you know them, don't get too involved. Other people's minds are like the bottom of a river. Even if you think you know its depth, you can never truly be sure. If you jump in thinking it's deep, and it turns out not to be, the only one who will get hurt is you. That's why it's better to have a little faith and fewer expectations, rather than expecting too much, as expectations only distort the image of the other person. Hayne thinks that she has been hurt before and doesn't want to go through it again, but somehow, tonight, just for tonight, she feels the desire to move forward. So for the first time, she calls him by his full name, Lee Yewoon. She tells him that there is something she wants to share with him. She confesses, with a calm yet emotion-filled tone, that she was once betrayed. Yewoon, upon hearing those words, is left speechless. His eyes watch her in surprise, and he repeats in a low voice, as if needing to confirm what he just heard. Did someone really betray you? In a memory, someone starts recording Hayne, calls out to her while she's playing, and asks her to play something since they're filming her now. Surprised, the girl asks what they're doing and comments that she hasn't even done her makeup. The person recording says it doesn't matter, that she's really cute. Then they insist she should play something, because they need to upload another video online. Hayne says it's fine, as she knows they haven't updated their videos in a while. Another person, a bit more demanding, asks her to sing a song that people like, not some weird foreign song only she knows. The artist reminds them that they told her to sing whatever she wanted, so that's what she'll do. With no other choice, the person recording agrees, but still insists she sing something people will recognize, once again pointing out how cute she is. Hayne wonders what song people might recognize, and after thinking for a bit, she believes one might work, so she decides to sing. It is then revealed that the people recording her were some of her classmates. Back in the present, Yewoon asks about the betrayal, and Hayne replies that it happened when she was in high school, that back then she had friends who had been close to her since she started school. But, after thinking for a bit, she says she doesn't know how to explain it, and goes silent for a few seconds. The boy, watching her for a moment, tells her she doesn't need to go into detail and asks her to just say what she can, that she can tell him the rest later. The girl looks at him and starts remembering. She says that back then, her classmates were kind at first, as they were the first people she met when she joined that school. She remembers playing the guitar and studying music, and how all of them encouraged her. So even if others didn't understand her, she believed those girls supported her dream, because they were always by her side, watching her play and listening to her songs. But it turned out that everything wasn't like that. She confesses that she doesn't know why, but in front of her they acted close and kind, while behind her back they used to insult her online. They criticized and mocked the way she played. They belittled her. They wrote that she had no talent and just liked showing off by making music. The impact was so strong that she started to believe her life was ruined. Hayne explains that this is why she sometimes falls into negative thoughts. She wonders what someone who calls themselves her friend is really thinking, how they might be judging her, or if that person who's close to her is actually laughing behind her back. She reveals that those are the anxious thoughts she usually has. And it's then that she reflects on why she's scared to talk about long afternoon. Yewoon, after hearing all that, looks at her and thanks her, holding her hand in the process. He tells her that despite everything she's been through, she was the one who approached him first, and that she has shared very personal things with him. He confesses that lately he enjoys spending time with her because he can talk about long afternoon, and also listen to her stories about music. He thanks her again for having the courage to do all that, saying those are his most sincere thoughts about her. Hayne looks at him, and after a few seconds, she remembers all the moments she watched him. She thinks that Yoon, who has truly seen her, is someone who doesn't need words, because he already knows. Then she smiles and tells him everything shows on his face. He, confused, asks what she means. She replies that his facial expressions are easy to read, that his emotions clearly show on his face, and that's why she thought if he ever lied, she'd notice instantly. Yoon asks if she's serious and confesses that he always thought he had a good poker face. Hayne asks if that's a joke, but he replies no, that even his boss has said he treats customers too coldly. The girl laughs and asks if maybe he just doesn't want to work. Then she suggests doing a test, which leaves the boy confused. But before he could say anything, she grabs his arm and says she'll guess how he's feeling just by looking at his face. Yoon looks at her, and she does the same, focused on analyzing his expressions. Then he thinks for a moment that this situation might be dangerous, as the two of them are very close. Also, his arm is touching Hayne's opai. Realizing this, he quickly turns around, hiding his face in embarrassment. The girl, confused, asks why he's turning away, since if he does that, she can't do the test. She asks why he won't look her in the eyes, but then she notices something. She stares silently, wondering in her mind what she's seeing, and ends up completely blushing. Then she suddenly stands up and says that now that she thinks about it, her uncle probably came back and she'll go check. That leaves the boy puzzled, but Hayne says that, at least based on what just happened, one thing is clear. Yoon is truly a sincere person. Then she quickly leaves to see if her uncle has arrived. Yoon, meanwhile, wonders what she meant by that, not quite understanding Hayne's last words. But then he realizes what happened. He looks down and notices that his friend woke up. Seeing the situation, he can only say that he's ruined. He shrinks in embarrassment and thinks that since he was wearing loose pants, it probably showed that he was excited. Outside, Hayne reflects on what just happened. They were just holding arms. How did it escalate to that? She admits to herself that it was amazing, in many ways. Now, in the borrowed car, the two teens are silent and a bit embarrassed. Hayne's uncle asks why they're so quiet and if they argued again. The girl says it's not that they're just tired. Then she asks who he borrowed the car from. The man replies that he borrowed it from Dong-chul, a guy who works at a bar and stays up late. He adds that he's the older brother of the one who used to play bass. He explains that the car is ideal for carrying stuff, so he's thinking of borrowing it in the summer. Hayne asks if it's for the rock festival and comments that maybe it would be better to rent a car. But her uncle says they can just pay Dong-chul's brother and use that car since renting one is a hassle because of the insurance. Then the uncle turns his attention to Yoon, wanting to know his name properly. The boy replies that it's Yoon, and the man asks if he has any plans to travel in the summer. He says he hasn't decided anything yet. Hearing that, the uncle suggests they go together to a rock festival, since he has invitation passes for 3 people. Yoon, confused, asks what that is, and Hayne explains it's a festival where musicians from various countries gather and perform for 2 nights and 3 days. There you can camp nearby, drink alcohol, and do a lot of things while having fun. She adds that her uncle will be working as part of the staff, so she'll be going too to have a good time. She concludes by saying that if he wants to go, he just needs to let her know. Excited, the uncle says that to prepare for the festival, they're going to listen to Kasabi's song, but Hayne asks to listen to Shimri Kagul, the Korean band, first. The two begin arguing over which band to play first. Yoon thinks for a few seconds. He knows that summer probably won't offer much free time because of job hunting preparation. But when he looks at Hayne, he confesses that he wants to go to the rock festival with her so they can spend more time together. The next day at the cafe, Yoon arrives, greets his boss, and informs her that he's already there. She, in turn, welcomes him and asks how things went the day before, smiling teasingly. Shin-young also smiles, which makes the young man nervous, as he immediately thinks she'll probably tease him all day. Ready to work, his boss offers him something to drink. He asks what's going on since it's not even break time. But she reveals it's a new recipe and she wants him to try it. She also asks him to tell her what happened after she found him yesterday. She adds that she helped him, so she feels entitled to know the rest of the story. He chuckles a little and confesses that, in the end, they made up normally and that was the end of it. Shin-young, upon hearing that, questions him. What does he mean by a normal reconciliation? She knows there was a fight and some flirting. Yoon asks if her shift was already over and she confirms that it is, but that she wants to hear the story. Annoyed, the young man tells her to hurry up and go home, that she shouldn't be listening in on conversations between superiors. However, Shin-young laughs and replies that she already heard everything. Before leaving, Yoon asks her not to hug everyone, since it'll just make people think she's silly. That comment leaves the girl in silence. The young man asks if she heard him, to which she replies, yes, she heard everything, calling him sir. But just before heading out, she remembers something. She has a pending order from before her shift and hasn't finished it yet. She apologizes and asks if he can do it for her. Yoon scolds her for not asking before clocking out, but she apologizes again and says goodbye. With no other choice, Yoon starts preparing the drink. Once ready, he calls out to customer 21 and informs them that the 4 drinks are ready. The customer thanks him upon receiving them, and the young man apologizes for the delay. As a courtesy, he adds a cookie. He then reflects that it was a good idea, since he almost got a complaint. Then he hears the customer asking someone named Arian to hold the drinks. Yoon quickly looks over. He sees a woman who looks familiar. He wonders if she might be Arian. His boss, noticing his expression, asks what's wrong, if someone insulted him behind his back. He replies no, that he just heard the name of someone he knows, which is why he looked. She lets it slide and says she's going to the restroom, but when she returns, she wants him to tell her everything that happened last night. He nods. But once she leaves, Yoon gets lost in thought. He tells himself it doesn't matter if Arian was his superior or not, because there's no longer any connection or regret. Even so, hearing a familiar name feels comforting, and nothing more than that. Memories flood him, but even as he turns his head, he knows she means nothing to him now. Just then, a few customers arrive, pulling him out of his thoughts. Days later, at the subway station, Yoon arrives and sits down. Tired, he exclaims that the day is finally over. He considers stopping by the night market on his way home to buy some food. He has nothing for breakfast the next day. Plus, he thinks he ran out of tissues, so he'll have to stock up. He starts thinking about what he needs to buy. But sleep overtakes him, and he decides to think about it later, at the supermarket. For now, he just wants to rest. He thinks he's like this because he's been working hard, or maybe because he's nervous about the upcoming internship. He feels more and more tired and closes his eyes. He quickly starts dreaming of the past. He's sitting next to a woman who's smoking. At that moment, he asks her why she ran away from the welcome party, that she disappeared halfway through and everyone was looking for her. She replies that she doesn't like noisy places or small talk. It bothers her when people talk just for the sake of it. Yoon explains that she has to make friends and get their numbers. She asks why, and he replies that otherwise she'll always be alone. She looks at him and says that if that's the case, then he'll have to stay with her. Upon hearing that, they both stare at each other. She offers him the cigarette she was smoking and asks if he wants to try. He seems to accept. But then Hayne wakes him from the memory. He jolts and asks if he heard that wrong. Hayne asks if he was asleep. He replies yes, that he had just closed his eyes for a moment. Then he reflects on the dream, wondering why he suddenly remembered the past. He confesses that it makes him feel bad to be next to Hayne, but comforts himself by saying he didn't do anything wrong. He then asks Miss Hayne if she wants to see something interesting. He shows her his phone and tells her about a foreign music app he uses. On another day, he saw a recommendation for Long Afternoon on the main screen. Hayne, upon seeing that, asks if it's real. He replies that yes, it's a playlist filled with lots of indie music from abroad, and Long Afternoon was featured there. He admits that he thinks people are finally recognizing Long Afternoon's potential, and he hopes it stays that way. Hayne watches him closely, and Yoon asks if something's wrong, if he drooled or something. She replies no, that she was simply admiring his expression. He looks happier when talking about Long Afternoon. He admits that yes, he really loves that artist's music. Suddenly, Hayne asks if he always carries his phone with him. Yoon finds the question odd but replies that people who live alone should even bring it to the bathroom in case they get locked in. Hayne asks if that's true and says it sounds a little scary. Still, she asks him not to forget his phone, to which he replies, okay. But then he wonders what that was all about and why she said it so suddenly. Looking at her, he questions if she heard about some kind of accident on the news. Right at that moment, the train is about to arrive. Back at home, Yoon comes out of the bathroom. He opens the fridge and thinks it's time to put away what he bought earlier, though he'll soon have to restock everything. As he stores the beer, he wonders if Hayne will visit again, and if they'll have a few drinks together. But as he looks at the can, he remembers something. He wonders if when she asked if he carried his phone, she was actually hinting that she wanted his number. He exclaims that he's an idiot, that he just realized it now. He grabs his phone and promises that next time, he'll definitely ask for her number. But then he sees something on the screen. He wonders what it is. Long Afternoon is live on Instagram. He wonders why so suddenly, and thinks he's never seen that before. There wasn't even a notice or a story. They simply started live streaming to sing. In a music studio, Hayne sings and plays with her band. When they finish, she announces the end of the rehearsal. One of the members replies with a gentle reminder. Everyone should feel comfortable with the song. The drummer asks when they'll be playing with Sung Hyun-jae. The bassist says it will be in the studio the day before the official recording. The drummer nods excitedly. While everyone is still standing, one of the members calls out to Han, who is sitting and looks surprised. As she buttons her jacket, the guy asks why she decided to perform live, reminding her that she had said the opposite when creating Long Afternoon. Although he doesn't mind if the band plays live, as long as it doesn't clash with his schedule, he'd like to understand the reason for the change. A bit nervous, Hayne begins to explain while remembering when she listened to the final version of the song in the studio. She loved it. It was different from anything she had heard before. Sung Hyun-jae laughs, saying he knew it. He explains that he mixed and remastered it in a different studio, one suited for his genre, since the previous one was somewhat limited. That's why he sent the material to a studio specialized in rock music, using Long Afternoon as a reference, and they managed everything in just one day. Hayne is surprised to learn they used her style as a reference. She quickly asks when the song will be released. He replies, between late June and early July, more precisely when they have the cover art ready. Curious, she asks who will make it. He answers that it'll be a digital artist from his label and that they will draw it beautifully. Then, he looks at her for a few seconds, stands up, and with determination, asks why they don't perform live. Hearing this, she asks if he means the live clips they talked about before. He says yes, that he was referring to the live clips, and adds that he's been playing around with some cinematic concepts. He takes out some photos and asks Hayne to take a look at them. He explains that there's an Icelandic band called Victory Rose that opens their concerts with a curtain in front of the stage and a projector casting images onto it. Hayne confesses she knows the band and loves them. He knows them too, and already assumes she would, since they're a post-rock group. He says he had been thinking about doing something similar, playing behind a curtain so that only the musicians' silhouettes are visible. He explains that the lighting would come from behind, projecting only their shadows onto the curtain. She looks at the papers for a few seconds, then asks if that wouldn't cost more than filming a live clip. Curious, she questions why he's doing all of this if it's not even his official album. Sung Hyun-jae says it's fine and admits that the song is good and he wants to invest more in it. Most of all, he believes the fans will like it. He says that when he performs, he feels the fans, their expressions, their screams, the raw emotions of those who love his music, of those who love Sung Hyun-jae. He says that when he's on stage and appears, the fans' excitement rises, and he doesn't want to disappoint them. That's why he puts in so much effort, because music doesn't exist until someone listens to it. And partly also because he wants this song to generate income. Hayne, upon hearing that last part, replies that money is important. Hyun-jae nods and tells her that if she's going to do it, he hopes she decides within this week. She agrees. However, she then reflects that he's surprisingly focused on his fans. She thought he just worked hard on his music and didn't communicate much on social media. That makes her think about what fans like and what that might mean. She's never performed live, but she feels like she's starting to understand that feeling a little. Then, after remembering her guy, she says she'll do it. She confirms that she'll do a live video as he suggested, but adds that she wants to include her own concept too. She asks if he's okay with that. Hyunjae says yes and that he'll send her the schedule. Back in the present, Hayne explains everything to her bandmate. He asks if that's how he managed to convince her. Hayne replies yes, and that after seeing how hard he worked on the concept, she decided to join in too. Lim Ju-won says he understands now, but since she didn't hear him, she asks what he said. He replies it was nothing, that he was just talking to himself. Then, he asks if she'll be okay, knowing it'll be her first live performance. Even without an audience, she'll likely be nervous with the filming crew watching. He warns her it'll be embarrassing if she messes up, so he recommends she practices her stage presence a lot. After that, Hayne heads to the subway. On the way, she reflects that she can't believe this will be her first live performance. She remembers that she did perform back in high school, but it was for a talent show. She wonders what to do and considers asking her uncle to sit in front of her the next time she practices. Then she sees Yoon asleep and wonders if she should let him rest until the train arrives. But she changes her mind, fearing he might catch a cold, so she decides to wake him up. She touches him and calls his name, startling him. He jumps and asks if he heard her wrong. She tells him he fell asleep, and he admits it, saying he just closed his eyes to rest a bit, smiling as he looks at her. She thinks job hunting must be really hard. She's never been through that, so she doesn't know what it's like. But looking at him, she hopes Long Afternoon can help someone who cares about him. Then she gets an idea and asks Yoon if he always carries his phone with him. He confirms, asking if she means his cell phone. She says yes, and tells him that some people live alone and even take it to the bathroom, just in case they get stuck. He says he didn't know that and that it's a bit scary to hear. She asks him not to forget to always carry his phone. At home, Yoon watches the live stream of Long Afternoon. He notices there aren't many people connected and that most of them seem to be foreigners. Even so, he thinks it's the band's first live show, and it's amazing to be able to see it. But all that appears on screen is the outside. Meanwhile, in Hayne's apartment, she reflects that the place is soundproof, and since it's nighttime, she'll sing quietly. Also, the ukulele is there just to support her with the notes. She thinks Yoon must be watching the stream by now, although she doesn't have his contact, so she can't be sure. Even so, she's certain he's watching her and listening. It's Long Afternoon's first live stream, and she starts playing and singing. Yoon listens to her, strengthening a deeper connection between a fan and his singer. On a quiet night, Hayne began to play and sing. The lyrics of her song spoke about the sky on a sad day and a black star standing out as a lonely breath among other stars. Its trajectory lacked inspiration, but precisely because of that, it flowed naturally with the rhythm of the seasons, driven only by inertia. However, the dark memories she encountered remained there, observing her as they aligned in mutual attraction. Beyond the speed of a flash, they shared a thrilling resonance. Because everything repeats itself, they remain there, precisely because everything will repeat again. Yoon was left speechless upon hearing the song. Meanwhile, Hayne ended the live stream, thanking everyone for joining her. The young man wondered if that was all, if in the end it was just a song. He realized it had been too short and wished to hear more music. Shortly afterward, he noticed the live replay was no longer available and regretted not recording it. Still, he wonders why she decided to do a live stream so suddenly at that hour, if perhaps she had a problem or was simply bored. Ultimately, he admits he doesn't know for sure but recognizes he loved it. He begins jumping joyfully, telling himself that was the best. After all, Long Afternoon went live. Plus, it was just her with a ukulele, no band, which he found awesome. Even more special because she didn't use autotune. He then lies down in bed, wondering if Miss Hayne also watched that live stream. He hopes she didn't miss it, because then they'd have something to talk about. Besides, he doesn't want to keep this joy to himself. Meanwhile, Hayne, blushing and very embarrassed, reflects that maybe she went too far and thinks the tone and rhythm were off. Convinced it was all a disaster, she feels singing in front of strangers is too much, and now believes she's acting crazy. Nevertheless, she wonders if all other musicians have gone through this experience since she'd never felt so nervous before. She recalls again that her voice didn't come out as expected, nor could she sing as she truly wished. She deeply wishes it was a lovely memory for everyone who watched her live. Above all, she hopes it was a pleasant first experience for him. The next evening, Yoon returns happily after a day's work. He wonders if he'll see Hayne again, thinking that if so, they'll have a long chat about nerdy stuff. But moreover, if they meet today, he must get her contact number. He immediately begins imagining they could continue talking about Long Afternoon and other songs from their homes. However, these thoughts vanish when Hayne suddenly surprises him. The startled young man asks how long she's been behind him, to which the girl, laughing harder than ever, replies that she's been following him since the station entrance. She then asks if he slept well, mentioning he looks a bit tired. Hearing this, he asks her if she didn't see Long Afternoon's live stream. Pretending ignorance, Hayne asks if there was a live stream. Yoon confirms yes and explains she sang Dark Planet at 2 a.m. on Instagram. The girl is surprised, replying she went to bed early and thus missed it. She then asks how the stream was and if it was good. Yoon thinks briefly before replying it was a bit strange. He adds the phone mic quality wasn't good, making the song sound too muffled. This slightly surprises Miss Hayne, leaving her a bit disappointed, merely saying she understands why it felt odd. However, Yoon continues by saying that despite this, it was very special. He explains it felt like a friend suddenly called at dawn just to sing for him. It was intimate and warm because, given the nighttime, the singer was careful not to perform too technically. He preferred it this way, feeling she sang from the heart. Thus, he thinks people crave live performances beyond recorded music. Finally, he adds he hopes she'll do more live streams because it made him truly happy. Miss Hayne looks at him closely and then lowers her gaze, softly stating she hopes to do it again too. That's when Yoon changes the subject and suggests exchanging contacts. That way, he could notify her when Long Afternoon does another live stream on Instagram. Besides, they could talk about music in general. However, the girl seems somewhat nervous and replies that she can give him her number, but first, sincerely warns him. She admits she's a little scared. This sparks Yoon's curiosity and he asks her why. She explains that she feels anxiety when she can't see the person she's talking to, so she only uses her phone for work matters or to communicate with her parents. While speaking, she quietly recalls her past experiences and the cyberbullying she suffered. She falls silent, reflecting on how uncomfortable texting makes her feel. Yoon senses her discomfort and suggests they only use the phone to say goodnight. This catches Hayne's attention, and she asks why. He explains he's always worried about her getting home safely, especially since they usually meet at night. Hayne accepts and adds she sometimes worries about him too, and they proceed to exchange contacts. Later that night, already at home, Hayne reflects that next week they'll finish the live recording of the collaborative song, and she'll need to refocus on Long Afternoon. She also thinks about all the new demos she has pending. She checks her phone, wondering if Yoon sent a message, certain that he must have gotten home before her. Turning on her phone, she sees a message from him asking if she got home safely, along with a photo of himself. Surprised, Hayne asks what's this about and why he sent a photo. He replies that he did it because she mentioned feeling nervous when she can't see the face of the person she's talking to. This leaves Hayne completely astonished, simultaneously whispering that she can't believe he sent a photo just because of that, finding it amusing. However, she smiles while looking more closely at the image. Meanwhile, Yoon receives a reply from Hayne, nothing less than a photograph of her with a message wishing him good night. He becomes captivated, commenting to himself about how cute she is, feeling a bit flushed while carefully saving the photo. One day, Hayne looks at a photo of Yoon. She examines every detail and reflects that he's terrible at taking pictures. No matter what angle she looks at him from, with those camera skills, she's sure he'll only take bad photos no matter what. She thinks that next time they meet, she should teach him how to take a good photo. Once he learns, he'll be able to send her much better pictures. At that moment, someone calls her. It's Kihu, her bandmate. The call startles her, and she quickly hides her phone. Ki-hoo, intrigued, asks why she always gets scared when she sees him. She replies that it's because he always tries to scare her, but he defends himself, saying he's never done that on purpose. Right after, he asks her to come in, as his brother is about to finish setting up the equipment. She nods and assures him she will. However, Ki-hoo notices she's carrying a lot and asks if she brought clothes like she's filming a movie. Hayne replies yes, that she brought something, which makes the band members quite curious. Once in the recording studio, Hayne meets Hyunjae. She greets him, and he kindly returns the greeting. He also informs her that he's setting up the instruments and waiting for them, as they'll soon do a sound check. He also introduces the stage preparation director, Yoon. Hayne greets her politely, and the woman responds with the same kindness. Hyunjae comments that Inna is a genius in media arts. However, upon hearing that, Inna asks if he's joking and suspects he's just saying that to get a discount on the shoot. Before continuing, Inna wants to confirm one last thing with long afternoon before starting. She asks Hayne if she had mentioned not wanting to show her face in the video. Hayne confirms that she did and asks them specifically to avoid showing her face. The director assures her that she understands and will definitely add it to her checklist. However, she then glances sideways at Hayne and comments that it's a pity. She says artists shouldn't be judged by their looks, but admits Hayne looks like a model. That's why she thinks it would be great to capture her beauty on video. Although the silhouette concept also seems fantastic to her, especially since they'll use the projector video she created, Inna believes that showing Hayne's face live would be even more impactful, and regrets they can't do it. Hayne then calls her, saying she wants to ask a question. Inna, a bit curious, replies by asking if something's wrong. That's when Hayne tells her she has something for her and asks if it could be used in the video. The director asks to see it and says it should be fine as long as it's not too reflective. Upon seeing it, Inna asks if that's what it is, to which Hayne responds affirmatively, revealing it's a decorated cap. Her bandmate asks what it is and if she made it. Hayne says yes, she made it while working. She explains that since the song is titled Ecosystem, she wanted to convey the feeling of nature singing its own melody. Her bandmate says he likes the idea, but comments the cap's quality is a bit poor. Hayne asks if he thinks it's kind of tacky. He replies she has talent for drawing, but making accessories like that is a job for professionals. Hayne agrees and thinks maybe they shouldn't use it. However, Inna steps in and says they'll give it a try. She comments that it'll require some work during the process, but maybe that doesn't matter. Besides, only the silhouette will be visible. Then she mentions she'll turn on the lights and asks Hayne to stand behind the curtains. Just then, Hyunjae arrives and asks what she thinks. He says he believes the accessory is fine. Inna disagrees, commenting that it looks like a children's party hat, but since she got permission to use it, they'll keep a close eye on it. However, the truth is, Inna thinks it's not just that. She states it'll be adorable because it represents an artist's fluttering attempt to create something new. Of course, even now, it's just the flutter of a butterfly in the middle of a storm, and if it doesn't work, there's no problem. Finally, Inna suggests that maybe he should watch too, and Hyunjae replies that he will and will share his opinion right away. Then, Hayne begins the test with the cap. The scene leaves everyone speechless. Even more so when Hayne starts singing. The song lyrics said, "They breathe constantly, extend their roots through the cracks of the sun. 100 winters and 1,000 summers, the story of eternity that they wrote. They shine with the raging waves. Both you and I will create another world." At the end of the performance, Inna's expression is unique, as if she were witnessing an original work by a great artist. Hyunjae notices and smiles. Then he says it turned out great and asks the director what she thinks. She replies that it's not bad, considering it's just a silhouette. Right after, she says she's going out for a cigarette while they do the sound check. Outside the studio, Inna sits in silence and lights a cigarette. Moments later, she bursts with excitement like a true fan. She wonders if they're really called Long Afternoon and says they're definitely very good. She opens their Instagram and sees they only have photos. Immediately, she thinks they have to release an album now. But then she corrects herself. Releasing an album would be an insult to the listener, a curse for the fans. What they really deserve is a concert just for them. She admits it's been a long time since she felt this way. That sensation of being absorbed by someone's art, like going back to her teenage years watching Nouvelle Vague for the first time. The French films that inspired her and led her to choose her career. She says that even if there's no money and everything is hard, art is about the pleasure of creating something new and the thrill of discovering talented artists. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Yoon was taking a short break, looking at his phone, or rather, a photo of his crush. He murmurs that she's really cute. He thinks Miss Hayne seems to know very well how to take pictures, but then wonders if it's because she has a small face. He reflects that he always knew she was charming, but seeing her in photos confirms it even more. He says he could look at her for hours. He wishes he had more pictures like that, or better, 1,000,000 of them. Just then, his manager arrives and tells him his break is over. Yoon gets up and she says she'll organize some inventory, so she asks him to watch the counter. He nods and tells her not to worry, that she can take her time. As he returns to the counter, he thinks he wants to see Hayne again, to get another photo. At that moment, a customer arrives wanting to order. They ask for an Earl Grey and a chocolate cake. Yoon replies that he'll let them know when it's ready. Then, another voice interrupts, saying they want the same. The young man replies he'll take care of it. But when he looks at who it is, he's left speechless. A blonde girl looks at him and greets him, reminding him how nervous she was last time she was there. The boy, surprised, asks why she's there, but he can't stop the memories from flooding in. As he looks at her, his expression changes, watching his supervisor. They exchange silent glances until Yoon asks what's going on, why she is there, and if she no longer works at the company across from P Station. She replies that she recently changed companies and now works at the company across from the cafe, in the building next to a store. Curious, she then asks how long he has been working there, and if he is in his 3rd or 4th year of university. He looks at her for a few seconds and asks her to place her order, as he cannot chat while working. His Nuna comments that he's being very cold and that it's been a long time since they last met. She says she only came to see him and asks which is the best drink there, requesting a recommendation. Yoon, with a serious expression, replies that their star drink is the yogurt blend with blueberry delights. The blonde laughs, noticing that it's the most expensive drink, and jokes that he's now a true businessman. However, Yoon insists that she hurry and order something, as he needs to prepare another customer's drink. She watches him for a moment, chooses a hot chocolate, and asks if he still remembers. She adds that she's still like a little girl and loves it when it's super sweet. While charging for the drink, he claims he doesn't remember, but she asks him not to play dumb, assuring him she knows he remembers everything. Yoon denies it again, saying he no longer remembers, that years have passed since they attended university together, and all that is now forgotten. However, she argues that he does remember since he knew which company she worked for and where it was located. Yoon, caught in his lie, thinks he made a mistake. The woman, with a soft expression, comments that she knows she hurt his feelings, but thinks it's a bit unfair for him to be so hard on her. She says he was younger back then, and so was she, and a lot of time has passed. So she asks him, please, to greet her once like he used to. She adds that if he doesn't, she'll cry. Yoon hesitates, and after preparing the drink, he hands the hot chocolate to customer 24, faking anger and a forced smile as he asks her to enjoy her drink. Looking at him, she asks why he's making that face and if he's angry with her. Without hesitation, he says yes and reminds her that, as he said before, he can't chat while working. Thus, he asks her to leave, mentioning that other customers are watching and his boss is rushing him. Also, he wants her to stop bothering him. Upon hearing that, she murmurs softly that it's a weak excuse. He asks what she said, but she replies it was nothing and comments that the hot chocolate is delicious. She says she'll come back again and wants more hot chocolate like the one he made. Yoon looks at her and asks her not to return, ending the conversation with both of them saying goodbye. After she leaves, Yoon remains upset, thinking that he's truly surprised and wonders why she is there. He thought he would never see her again, yet she came back as if nothing had happened, remembering everything. In the present, he sighs slightly and reflects that he can't stop thinking about it, hoping to soon get 200 orders to stay busy and avoid remembering her. Later, after work at the train station, Yoon feels exhausted and reflects that he had heard about company parties but didn't expect the orders to flood in like crazy. He says he almost died. In the end, he didn't have time to think about anything, as the orders came in groups. He promises himself that as soon as he gets home, he'll shower and sleep and wake up early tomorrow to do his chores. Just then, He hears the sound of a camera, as if someone is taking photos of him. And indeed, Hayne was taking some pictures. He greets her and asks what she's doing and why she's taking pictures of him all of a sudden. She replies that it's just for fun, that she saw him in a good pose and decided to take a picture. She shows it to him, and he's surprised at how good she is at photography. Hayne confirms it and asks to borrow his phone. Confused, he asks why, and she says it'll only take a second, that she wants to show him something. She also tells him not to worry, that she won't check out the cute girls in his photo album. He says he doesn't keep that kind of stuff in his album and lets her check it. She explains she's going to change the camera settings to set it up properly. Once done, she asks him to look toward the camera and says she activated the gesture shot with the rear camera. They take a selfie together. Seeing the photo, Hayne says it turned out great, and Yoon agrees. She then asks him to take photos like this from now on when sending pictures at night, saying that way they'll look better. She clarifies that the last photo he sent was weird. Curious, he asks how weird. Hayne explains that his face ended up at the edge of the screen. The lens warped and distorted his face like a steamed bun. He realizes his mistake and understands better how to take a good selfie. Blushing a little, he asks if she'll save the photos he sends like this. She replies yes, that after all, it's a good memory, but then asks if he saved the photo she sent him. He blushes even more, and although he initially denies it, he later confesses he did save it. Hayne watches him with a slight smile and comments that, after all, he does have a sexy girl's photo on his phone. Back at their respective apartments, Yoon sends her a photo and asks how it turned out. She replies by sending another photo, saying it's a good shot. He looks at her in the photo and thinks she's cute, and that he should save that photo too. At first, he just wanted to cheer up Miss Hayne, and the whole situation seems funny to him. He reflects that if they ever look at these photos together, they'll be a nice memory. However, while saving the new photo, he comes across another one, an old one, where he appears with his former superior from long ago. He thinks he had deleted all those photos back then, but some survived in another folder. He stays silent for a few seconds as memories of someone who once completely held his heart resurface. He reflects that, in truth, when he saw Han Arn today, he was surprised but felt nothing more than that. He admits he hates her, and that seeing her face reminded him of all the fun times they had together. He wishes he could forget that past now invading his present. He doesn't want to remember the acrid smell of cigarette smoke or the sweet scent of hot chocolate. Those sensations disguised as beautiful memories. He murmurs to himself that he needs a drink before deciding to delete that photograph. In a memory, a little boy greets the camera and says he's 8 years old. He reveals that his dream is to become an astronaut or an architect like his dad. He also mentions that what he likes the most are the sweets his mom makes. As time goes by, the same boy appears again greeting the camera. He's now 13 years old, introduces himself as Lee Yoon, and says that he currently lives with his father. His new dream is to become a basketball player since he believes his height gives him an advantage. Time passes again. Yoon is now 15 years old and in his second year of high school, but in that recording, he doesn't say anything. Finally, 18-year-old Yoon appears. He says that his current goal is to get into a university in the metropolitan area and that he's preparing to achieve it. When asked about his dream, he says he wants to get into a good company and earn a lot of money. He explains that his father had a hard time raising him alone and he wants to become independent to give him a break. However, he immediately asks to edit what he just said, since his father worries about every detail of his words. He thinks he might scold him again for questioning what kind of independence he really wants. Then it's revealed that Yoon was watching recordings of himself while changing dreams at each moment of his life. Or rather, he was asleep. At that moment, Han Arnie wakes him up and tells him the movie has already ended, startling the young man. He apologizes, explaining that he stayed up all night doing homework, which is why he fell asleep. Still, he asks her if she enjoyed the movie. She replies that yes, it was very fun. Then she tells him it's time for class. The young man looks a bit surprised and doesn't know what to do. Then the blonde girl reaches out her hand and asks, "So what?" She tells him they have to run. A light shines on them, as if it were a movie scene. At that moment, the girl comments that there was a movie where they filmed the actor from childhood to adulthood, revealing it took 12 years to complete. Yoon, surprised, asks if that's real, and she confirms, adding that the movie was about a boy's life. Drawing that parallel, she reflects that her life is not to be wasted, and she would like it to become a movie for others someday. Yoon looks at her, smiling as he listens. Then she points toward someone and asks him to look. She says the bald assistant is walking and picking his nose again. Yoon laughs and says he always does that. Then she points to the main teacher's car, which is covered in bird droppings. Both of them have fun with that and, holding hands, laugh together. Shortly after, they arrive at a table, and Yoon asks why there's a cafeteria table in a place like that. The girl says it's great and asks if they can eat something. The boy replies that the place looks expensive and asks if it's okay. She tells him not to worry, that she'll take care of it. So their first dish is a don't know what it tastes like, but it's expensive. The boy admits he's never eaten anything like it. Then, for the second course, she presents her collection of favorite movies. Upon seeing them, Yoon comments that the dinosaur movie is a bit unexpected. However, Han Arnie says she picked it because she likes the scene where people lose their lives. Lastly, she offers her cigarettes and cold medicine, to which Yoon replies that it tastes a bit bitter. Then it's revealed that she is the chef and asks if he liked the food. He says yes, that he doesn't exactly know what it tastes like, but it's delicious. He also confesses that when he was a child, his father was always busy, so he only studied. Thanks to her, he can now see a whole new world. She, removing a fake mustache, says she's glad about that. Then she tells him it's time to pay the bill. He, a bit confused, asks if she already did the math. But when he sees what is supposed to be the bill, he's astonished. Because on the ticket there's a message that says, "If you forget all this and act like it never happened, it's free." At that moment, the lights go out. Noticing it, he asks why they suddenly went off and calls for Han Arnie, asking where she is. He yells, asking her to answer him, but he gets no response and wonders why she left him alone. He looks a bit disappointed until a light appears behind him. When he turns around, he sees Hayne descending in a strangely shaped balloon. A bit scared, he asks what that is and if it's an alien, but then denies it, recognizing it's Hayne. Still, he asks what's up with those snail antennas. She, upon seeing him, asks if he plans to just stand there. She quickly asks him to take her hand because that world is about to disappear just as everything starts to explode. Then Yoon wakes up. He wonders what just happened and when he fell asleep. He sits up and wonders what that strange dream was all about. He confesses to himself that if he's going to dream, he'd rather dream about the lottery. At least then he'd know what numbers to play. At that moment, it's revealed that he was studying in a library. Later at work, Yoon says he's heading out first and bids farewell to his boss. But before he leaves, she asks him to take something and throws him a small bag. When he sees it, he asks what it is. His boss replies that the owner of the whiskey bar gave her those liquor chocolates and suggests he share them with Hayne when he sees her. She adds, laughing, that maybe if they both eat those chocolates, they'll be in the mood to do something naughty that night. Yoon yells that that's ridiculous, clearly embarrassed. Later, at the train station, the young man reflects that it's been a long time since he last had liquor chocolates. He thinks the last time was when he was a child, in his father's room. Then he sees Hayne. He walks up to her and calls her name. He sits next to her and asks what she's listening to. She replies it's just a playlist she made, and that she sometimes does things like that when she's bored. He asks if it's like being a DJ, and she says something like that. At that moment, he pulls out the chocolate and asks if she wants to try it, revealing they're sake chocolates. Surprised, she asks if liquor chocolates really exist and if they taste like alcohol. He asks if she's never tried one before, and she confesses that she's not into chocolate. That reminds him that she once said she didn't like sweets. He looks at the chocolate and thinks she probably won't like it since it's quite sweet. But she takes the chocolate from his hand and says she'll try it. Upon tasting it, she says the flavor is strange and that she can almost smell the alcohol. He clarifies that it does have real alcohol and estimates it's about 1%. Curious, she asks if she could get drunk by eating more, but he says no, it's just a snack to go with drinks. She understands. Then, with a mischievous look, she asks if that candy is perfect to give someone you want to drink with, and if that's the case, he is left speechless and slightly blushing. But he asks if she wants another chocolate, which makes her laugh. She says he's being very bold now. Either way, she thanks him. She confesses she doesn't like sweets, so she didn't know something like that existed. She thanks him again, even more for being so bold. Yoon laughs and is happy that she liked it. Then Hayne asks if what he's drinking is coffee, and if it's okay to drink that at night, saying she thinks he won't be able to sleep afterward. He says he has an assignment due the day after tomorrow and plans to finish it that night without sleeping, since he has no classes the next day. The girl thinks for a moment just as the next train arrives. Before saying goodbye, she tells him not to overwork himself. He replies that happens to him all the time. That same night, in his apartment, Yoon is focused in front of the computer. He writes his assignment with determination, but sleep begins to take over. He checks the time and realizes it's almost 5 in the morning. For some reason, his eyes close by themselves. He thinks he can't go on like that, and that he needs to take a short break to regain energy since he's almost done. Then he sees a notification on his phone. It's a post from Long Afternoon announcing that the playlist of the day is now available. Yoon is happy to see that. He thought they had stopped making them a while ago and adds that those playlists always had hidden gems. He selects the playlist, thinking he'll listen while finishing his assignment. When he hits play, he is transported once again to the place where he left off in his dream. Yoon wonders if that world is coming to an end and where they will go now. Hayne thinks for a moment. She replies they could go to Liverpool, home of the Beatles, or Manchester, birthplace of Ashes. The young man says both places are in the UK, and in the end, she turns out to be a true British music fan. But she says it doesn't matter where they go, as long as they're together. Because wherever they are, it will be a completely new world, and she reveals that at that moment, they are next to each other, but in a more intimate way. Yoon wakes up suddenly, blushing and breathless. He sits up and says between sighs that he had that strange dream again. He stays silent for a moment and blames the sake chocolates. Another day at the cafe, Han Arn appears once more and greets upon entering. The manager welcomes her kindly, while Yoon thinks with slight annoyance that he had already said he didn't want her to come. However, it's clear the woman didn't listen, and she requests a cup of hot chocolate with a lava cake. The manager confirms the order and asks if she would like anything else. She replies no, adding that she'll leave after having her drink. Ju says that's fine and that she'll let her know when the order is ready. Then she asks Yoon to prepare the hot beverage in a mug. The young man nods and assures it will be ready soon. While preparing it, he wonders what's going on with her and why she came back again. Admitting her presence makes him uncomfortable. He watches her closely, wondering if she came back because of him. However, he quickly dismisses the thought, convincing himself he shouldn't worry about it. After all, if he thinks about it, there could be countless reasons. Soon after, he announces that the lava cake and hot chocolate for customer number 11 are ready. He also wishes her to enjoy it. Han Arn receives the order silently until she calls out to the young man. Then she asks how late the place stays open. He replies that they close at 11:30 p.m. and that the last drink order is accepted until 11 o'clock. Han Arn thanks him for the information and starts to leave. But Yoon keeps thinking about what just happened. He thought she was pretending not to know him, but in the end, she didn't say anything else. He wonders if she really came just for the hot chocolate. The next day, Han Arn shows up again, greeting as she walks in. Upon seeing her, Ju welcomes her cheerfully and is glad she returned. Yoon, for his part, once again feels irritated seeing her there. The blonde girl orders another hot chocolate and an egg tart. The manager confirms the order and asks if she'd like anything else this time. The customer confirms with a nod. Yoon can't help but wonder why she keeps coming back. But that wasn't the only day, because the following day, she returns. Seeing her again, Ju becomes even more enthusiastic, thinking she has become a regular. This time, Han Arn orders a hot chocolate and a cheesecake. The manager confirms the order. The blonde asks if they have any kind of loyalty card. Ju replies yes, explaining that after collecting 10 stamps, she can redeem a free Americano. The customer asks if only an Americano can be redeemed. The owner clarifies that no, it can be exchanged for another drink by paying the price difference. With that information, the girl requests a stamp card, and the manager assures her it'll be given to her shortly. As she leaves, Ju watches her and comments that it's curious how some people still ask for stamp cards, when nowadays no one cares about miles or app functions. She considers such cards quite outdated. Then Yoon replies that it's just a matter of taste, and that she loves collecting physical memories from every place. She prefers tangible keepsakes over digital ones. Just like with movies, she'd rather buy them on Blu-ray or other physical formats. Intrigued, Ju asks if he knows her. He explains that she was his superior at university, who graduated before he returned after taking a leave of absence. The manager asks what that means, hinting whether he's pretending not to know her just to keep his part-time job. Yoon replies that's not the case, that it's nothing really, and they weren't that close anyway, so they don't have much to talk about. After saying that, he hands the order to the customer and wishes her to enjoy it. Looking at him, Ju thinks that the lingering taste isn't just from the coffee. She knows he's a terrible liar. She reflects that he said they weren't close, but he remembers everything she likes in detail. She knows she shouldn't meddle too much in other people's lives, because everyone has a past they'd rather keep private. Even so, she finds it more entertaining to watch a story unfold than to just hear about it. She smiles to herself, imagining she's watching another youth drama from afar. After finishing his shift and closing the cafe, Yoon says goodbye cordially, wishing his manager good night. She returns the gesture, thanking him for his effort. As he walks toward the station, he reflects on the fact that he's already sent his summer internship applications. He wonders if now all that's left is to wait for the final exams while preparing for a potential full-time job. He thinks he has many responsibilities, and although he's taking few classes, the assignments are numerous. Still, his mind returns to Han Arn, wondering why she keeps showing up in his life. He admits he's going crazy trying to understand why, and her presence unsettles him more each time. However, he can't ask her to leave since he's just a part-time worker. Upon reaching the station, he sees Hayne, who seems to be resting, or rather, she's asleep. The young man sits beside her, noticing he's never seen her this sleepy. He wonders if she's exhausted from the day. At that moment, the girl wakes up and greets Yoon, asking if he's been there long. He returns the greeting and says he just arrived, then asks if she's very tired today. The girl explains she forgot she had a recording that morning and worked all night. She also has a part-time job writing songs and doing other work, so she's really drowsy. Hearing this, Yoon suggests she lie down and sleep a bit until the train arrives. He promises to wake her when it's time. She asks if he'd really do that. But before getting a reply, she leans on him, asking him to hold her shoulder so she doesn't sway. He agrees, though he thinks to himself that he meant leaning on the wall. Even so, he holds her carefully, leaving them very close to each other. Once again, Yoon thinks that Miss Hayne's hands are soft and delicate. He also notices her hair smells nice and finds the closeness comforting. Amid the daily rush, he deeply values those brief moments with her. He strongly wishes he could escape everything, forget about work, studies, and responsibilities. He just wants to spend the day with Han without worrying about anything else. At that moment, the girl wakes up, catching him off guard. She looks at him, and he asks if she's okay. She smiles, saying that his nose was touching the back of her head and it tickled. The young man apologizes, but Hayne asks if he wants to know what kind of shampoo she uses. He replies that it's not necessary. As he gets off at his station, he receives a call from an unknown number and wonders if his father changed his number. He answers, waiting for a response. Then, on the other end, a surprised voice says he still hasn't changed his number. The young man immediately recognizes that voice. It's Han Arn, his former superior. So he asks if it's her, to confirm. The woman laughs and says she only spoke a few words, and yet he recognized her just by her voice. Then she asks if he's finally stopped pretending. Yoon was left speechless by the person talking to him, but then he asked when she had changed her number. Arian replied that it had been a while and asked if he was surprised. She knew he truly was. She also added that it had been a long time since they last talked. The young man, without much delay, asked why she had called him. The blonde replied that she was about to go to sleep, but suddenly remembered him, so she called. With a hint of mischief, she asked if he hadn't thought about her lately. Annoyed by what he heard, Yoon simply said goodbye to end the game quickly. However, Arian asked him not to hang up and questioned why he was being so cold with her. She began recalling how he used to work at the cafe and how he didn't want to talk to her back then either. She asked if he wasn't going too far. Irritated, Yoon said he just wanted to ask one question because this happened every day. He wanted to know why she kept going to the cafe and what she needed from him. As if it were all a game, Arian said she didn't need anything from him, that she just often went there because it was near her workplace. She added she could even do the rest of her work there. But then it was her turn to ask, and curiously, she wanted to know if, besides all that, There was a special reason why she always went to the cafe where he worked. Yoon moved the phone slightly away, thinking she was dragging him into her conversation again. But this time it was different, and he wouldn't let himself get caught in her words. So he told her he felt a bit uncomfortable, that it bothered him when he knew a customer at work, as it felt like they were watching him. Arian remained silent for a few seconds, as if that wasn't the answer she expected. Then, no longer avoiding her curiosity, she asked if by any chance he was in love with someone. Once again, Yoon moved the phone away as if trying to see who was talking to him. She, in turn, laughed and assumed his silence meant yes. She added his reactions were always so honest and amusing. Even so, she told him not to worry, as she confessed she didn't expect anything from him. She started saying that whenever she saw him, but she didn't finish her sentence, drifting into another memory between the two, one in which they used to go to a 24-hour cafe quite often. Yoon asked if that was true, and Arian replied that yes, they used to stay up all night there, doing homework and drinking together, then waited for the first bus. She added that he stayed with her when she didn't want to go home. The young man remained silent for a few seconds, then said he wasn't sure and questioned if they really did that. Arian assured him they had, and she remembered everything. From the jazz music playing in the cafe to the dirty bathrooms. She confessed she remembered it so well because that place was the most fun she had ever had. That's why she asked if he really didn't remember anything. She recalled how after a conference they went to see Bong Chan-soo's new movie, which was a bit naughty. Then Yoon answered honestly. Yes, he remembered everything she had said, but he didn't feel anything special about it. To him, they were just everyday stories. So he didn't mind if she remembered those days. Nothing would change between them. With no other options, Arian said she understood, that she was done reminiscing, and wouldn't call him late at night again. But still, she asked if he minded her continuing to go to the cafe where he worked, as she simply liked the coffee there a lot. Yoon replied she could do as she pleased, that he wasn't the owner of the place, so he couldn't kick her out. Although he thought that if he got a full-time job, he would be the first to leave. Finally, he said a dry goodbye, but she shouted for him to wait. Annoyed and tired, Yoon asked what was it now. Then his ex said she just wanted to tell him that she had moved out and no longer lived with her parents. She also revealed that her new home was only 2 subway stops from her workplace, and that if he ever got bored, he could visit her. She asked if he agreed, unaware that it actually irritated him. That's why he asked why he should go and immediately hung up. Afterward, he wondered what she wanted, calling him so late and talking about the past. He questioned if she thought he was still the same as before. He thought about blocking her number, but took a moment to reflect. He believed that if he blocked her and no longer heard from her, she might do something at his workplace, since it was nearby. Therefore, the best option was to keep his distance and push her out of his life. If he ignored her, she'd eventually get tired. That's when he received a new message. Upon seeing who it was, his expression changed and a smile formed on his face. It was Hayne asking if he had already gotten home, and she sent a picture of herself wearing a face mask. Looking at it, he jokingly asked what kind of mask it was, if it was a bear or a raccoon. He admitted to himself that she was truly perfect. On the outside, she looked so grown up, but inside, she was still childlike. And he thought that trait was the cutest thing about her. He reflected that he had to take a picture and send it soon. But for now, he simply took one and sent it to her. He thought that memories kept piling up and special moments grew day by day, until the time came. He was sure that day would come. Then he laughed because right after she complained, Hayne scolded him for taking the photo against the light and asked him to take another one soon, which he agreed to do. And the next day at the subway station, Hayne was calmly reading, until Yoon arrived, greeting her politely. She greeted him back and commented that he seemed to be in a good mood after work. He confirmed it and said she looked good too. He then asked what she was reading. Hayne replied it was a poetry book, from which she was trying to draw inspiration for her compositions. Yoon was impressed by her dedication and curiously asked if she read a lot. The girl replied not too often, but when she had time, she read slowly. Also, she liked poems because she tried to adapt them into her songs. Yoon asked if he could take a look at the book, and Hayne handed it to him without hesitation. He began flipping through it and noticed she had marked all her favorite verses, confirming how much she liked poetry. Then he asked if she usually bought many books like that. Hayne replied no. that she preferred reading them digitally or borrowing them from the library. But if she really liked something, she made the effort to buy it physically. She confessed there was something comforting about holding them in her hands. Cheered by the conversation, Yoon guessed she must have over 100 poetry books at home. That made Hayne laugh, and she said no, she only had 4 or 5. She didn't have enough time to collect more. But she added that if she had the time and money, she would gather all her favorite records, instruments, and books, and pile them up, imagining herself as a child in a place full of her favorite things, saying that would make her very happy. Yoon laughed and couldn't believe it. He asked what would happen if she died buried under all that. But Hayne stared at him and said she wouldn't mind because that would be better than losing something she loved. That left Yoon speechless. He looked away, thoughtful, while still flipping through the book. Then he called her and asked if she wanted to have dinner with him. He suggested going out on her day off and asked what she thought. She, initially showing no expression, soon smiled at him. She said that was fine and that the menu would be what Yoon usually liked. She asked what he thought about that. He nodded just as the next train was arriving. On another day, Yoon happily works at the cafe. His boss, noticing his good mood, asks why he's so cheerful and if his favorite musician has posted something on social media. He replies not yet, but says he'll soon have a day off and that makes him feel good. The boss confirms it's true and mentions that she's been so busy promoting new products that she forgot about her own day off. She asks if he already has plans and if he'd like to go out for a drink with her. However, Yoon replies that he already has a date for that day. She questions him, asking if he's avoiding her because of what happened last time. But Yoon clarifies that he's not, that he really does have a date, and that he has no reason to avoid her since everything was cleared up between them. Yuju reflects for a moment and confesses that she's been sober for a while, but lately has felt like having a drink. The young man then suggests she invite Shin-young, since she'll also be free that day. His boss says she'll think about it, though she mentions that Shin-young has been quite busy lately, probably studying in the afternoons. She then wonders if she should go to the whiskey bar alone and chat with Mr. Dong-chul, since she doesn't really have anyone to talk to these days. She reveals that all her friends are married and she feels she can't keep them up that late. Hearing that, Yoon feels a bit bad. So he decides to take a break and take out the trash, to which the woman agrees without hesitation. Once outside, he reflects that his boss seems unusually lonely lately and wonders if it's because spring is coming. At that moment, he sees someone. It's his ex standing there smoking. When she sees him, she greets him. Yoon quickly adopts a serious demeanor, and as he passes by her, tells her not to smoke there because she might set the trash on fire. She apologizes, puts out the cigarette, and places it in a bag to throw away later, all while watching him. Just as he was about to go back to work, Arian steps in his way. The young man asks what she's doing and tells her not to block the path since he's working. She replies that he should just go around her if he doesn't like it. He asks what she's talking about, and as he passes by her, tells her not to joke around without reason. However, she grabs him by the hair, trying to get his attention. Yoon turns around annoyed and asks what she's doing and if she's lost her mind. Bluntly, Arian asks if he hates her that much. This leaves the boy a bit intrigued. The blonde continues and confesses that she knows what she did was wrong and that it hurt him a lot. But still, she can't help but wonder if he really hates her so much that he can't even greet her normally. She asks what she can do to be forgiven and be friends again. She confesses she'd do whatever he asks, even if he wants to slap her. She steps closer, waiting for his response. Yoon questions why she's acting like this all of a sudden after so long without speaking to each other. She looks at him and replies with a smile that she doesn't know either and wonders why she's doing it too. Yoon thinks to himself that he's in trouble again. He decides to walk away from the situation and tells her to stop playing around because he doesn't have time for it. She apologizes but complains that he's being disrespectful to her and that she wouldn't be doing any of this if he just greeted her like before. Yoon, somewhat irritated, replies that he already told her he's working. Arian gets it, but asks him to greet her properly next time. The young man yells that he's busy and walks away. As he walks off, he wonders what's wrong with her and if she's acting like a stalker now. Even so, he acknowledges that it's not easy to distance yourself from someone who was always close. He remembers the real reason she bothers him. He thinks deeply about it all until he concludes that this all sucks. Then he reflects that he can't wait to see Miss Hayne. He just wants to talk about music, joke around with her, and think about nothing else but being by her side. At that moment, his boss calls him, and startled, he replies that he's on his way. Meanwhile, the director in charge of the music video shows the final result to her clients. She asks what Hayne thinks, mentioning that only the credits are left to be added, so if she wants to make any changes, now's the time. Sung Hyun-jae says he's satisfied and that the video is complete as is. The director nods and says she'll finish it that way and deliver it. She then asks Hayne directly what she thinks and mentions she specifically edited the long afternoon scene so her face wouldn't appear. The singer, impressed, responds that it's fine, that the video turned out great. Yoon seems pleased with the comment and says she'll finish it with the credits. Internally, she feels like she's received a compliment. Then, Sung Hyun-jae reminds her that she had something to tell Hayne. Ina remembers and hands her a brochure. She asks if she'd like to take a look at it. She explains that she leads a team of independent artists called Oozing. She clarifies that they're not a big team, but they have a variety of artists collaborating: filmmakers, animators, 3D artists, and more. She mentions that recently someone suggested listening to Long Afternoon, and everyone did. As a result, an idea emerged. They proposed making a music video for one of her songs. Hayne asks if that wouldn't be too expensive. Ina replies not necessarily. The project would be experimental and kind of avant-garde. She explains that they're creating a video inspired by her music as an artistic collaboration among independents. When it comes out, it would promote both Oozing and Long Afternoon. Sincerely, Ina expresses that Hayne's music is amazing. She strikes a dramatic pose, like someone dedicating their heart and battling titans, but then composes herself and asks her to review the brochure and get in touch if she's interested. She also asks her not to mention it to anyone, as it's a free project and they don't want other singers to start asking for collaborations without any financial return. Hayne says she'll think about it. Then she asks if that's all for the meeting. Sung Hyun-jae confirms and asks if she's heading to work now, which she affirms. Before she leaves, he asks if she'll be busy tonight, and if not, invites her to dinner to talk about a few things. But Hayne responds with a firm no, explaining that she already has a commitment and doesn't plan on canceling it. She says goodbye and walks off. Sung Hyun-jae thinks it won't be easy, as he was hoping to flirt with her. Ina hits him and tells him not to do that with her favorite artist, saying he has a very impure mind. He replies there's nothing wrong with a man flirting with a woman, and that it's not what she thinks. In fact, his intention was to attract Long Afternoon to his label. He thought she'd be interested in his skills as a producer, but in the end, it didn't go as he hoped. He asks Ina if she wants to grab a drink. The next day, Yoon waits while thinking it's 6:10 and that there's still some time left. This is because he left earlier than necessary. Since he's going to a familiar place, he could have taken a bit longer. He wonders if she's okay or if she has a headache. He starts fixing his hair, but then realizes that, for some reason, he's nervous. Even though he's seen Hayne many times, and they've even gone out drinking together, he thought this time wouldn't be any different. However, now that it's an actual date, it feels completely different. He wonders if his hair looks all right, if there's anything out of place. At that moment, his date arrives and asks what he's doing. The question catches him off guard, and he responds by asking if she also left early. The girl explains that her uncle told her he'd take care of the studio until 9, so she had free time, and that's why she left earlier than planned. Then she steps a bit closer, looks at him carefully, and tells him not to worry. His hair looks fine. Yoon laughs, a little nervous, and asks if she's serious. Then he suggests they go right away because he's hungry. Curious, Hayne asks where they're going today, whether it's a restaurant only he knows or a more casual dinner. The young man smiles confidently and asks if she likes spicy food. So, they head to a restaurant that specializes in spicy food. Yoon mentions that the place is famous for its delicious jambong. He adds that it's not only tasty, but also fun because you can try different levels of spiciness. That catches Hayne's attention, and she asks if he likes spicy food. He replies only a little, and suggests that if she doesn't like it, she can order the basic level, while he's going to order level 3 or 4. That surprises Hayne, who comments that he really does like spicy food. Then she calls the waiter and asks if the restaurant offers a level 6 spiciness. The waiter says yes, which surprises Yoon. When he checks the menu again, he realizes it only goes up to level 4. Hayne explains that there are secret levels, going up to level 8, intended for true spice lovers. She also tells him that the last time she was at a place like this, she tried level 7 and thought she was going to die from the heat. She adds that because it's so intense, it wouldn't be good for him to eat something that spicy, so she'll join him by ordering level 6. Yoon, visibly embarrassed, replies that if that's the case, he'll also order level 6. Hayne asks if he's serious and tells him he doesn't have to try so hard. But he insists that since they came together, he prefers to eat the same thing as her. It makes him feel like they're really sharing the meal. Upon hearing that, she looks at him with admiration, and a cute but small smile appears on her lips. Then she declares they'll order 2 bowls of level 6 jambong with a bit of spicy honey. When the dishes arrive, the waiter wishes them enjoyment, revealing that both bowls have an intense crimson color. Seeing them, Yoon wonders if he'll really be able to enjoy it since it looks extremely spicy. Hayne asks if he'll be okay, and he says yes. Then he questions how spicy it can really be. He believes that once you reach a certain level, all spiciness should feel the same as before. But upon tasting it, he experiences true terror. He starts coughing and his face turns red. Hayne can't help but worry and asks if he's okay. She explains that you have to start by drinking the broth to get used to it. She asks if he wants her to order him a less spicy broth since she doesn't think he can handle this level. But Yoon refuses and says he can keep eating. They both enjoy this super spicy meal. After eating, Yoon looks visibly exhausted. Hayne asks if he's okay. He replies yes, that he just has a split lip, a cramp in his spine, and his hands and feet are numb from the acidity. That makes the girl say that clearly, in the end, he's not okay. She reminds him that's why she told him not to try so hard. He didn't even finish the dish. Yoon, looking at her, asks if she's okay. Hayne replies yes and reveals that she's a fan of spicy food. Yoon admits he lost, and Hayne tells him not to compete over that. He reflects that he chose that restaurant to have a fun and relaxed conversation, but they couldn't talk about anything. He just kept repeating that the food was spicy. He confesses to himself that it's been a total disaster. Hayne, after looking at him for a few seconds, asks if he has to go home now. He replies that he doesn't have anything to do today. Then the girl asks if he wants to go somewhere to rest or do something else. Curious, he asks where they'll go to relax, and Hayne says she knows a good place where they can relax comfortably. She gets up and asks him to follow her. She's going to show him. He nods, but while following her, he wonders what place she's referring to and where exactly they'll comfortably relax. They pass by some places that could be good for resting, but none of them catch his attention because all he can do is look at Hayne, blushing a little. They finally arrive, just as someone is singing while playing the guitar. When they finish, the person thanks the audience and announces that their group is called The Beggars and the Fishermen. Yoon is surprised, but quickly asks if when she said rest a little, she meant going to a live music bar. Hayne confirms it and tells him that on weekdays there's open mic, so you only have to pay for drinks and can enjoy the show for free. The young man looks puzzled, and Hayne tells him to sit down, that she'll bring him a beer. Already seated, he reflects that he was foolish to imagine silly things. He felt a bit disappointed, but thinking it over, it makes no sense to have had unfounded expectations. Then, he reconsiders and admits to himself that he didn't know a place like that existed near the university. He's passed by that spot almost every day and never noticed it. Hayne returns with the beers and Yoon thanks her. She asks if he's okay. He says yes, though he's worried about how he'll feel in the morning. To that, she replies not to die. Then, another person goes on stage and introduces themselves as Bittersweet Butterfly. They announce that this is their second ever performance, so they might forget the lyrics or have a slightly off rhythm. Even so, they ask the audience to enjoy their music. The first song is called Like Before. The couple starts watching the show attentively, and Yoon thinks about the place. The cheap orange lights, the sticky tables, the rough sound of the speakers, and the audience listening in silence. It's an indie concert, and everything feels new and unfamiliar to him. He knows that Hayne has lived in a world he doesn't know. Then he looks at her, gets closer, and tells her that he thinks the place is very beautiful. Then he takes a sip of his beer, Hayne watches him, does the same, and calls out to him. Then she tells him that she also likes it a lot. They look at each other and then simply keep drinking their beers while watching the show. The singer thanks the audience and announces that they'll now perform the next song. The next piece is called It Doesn't Freeze. For some reason, we're taken into one of Yoon's memories. At that moment, he asks if she only played with him. Arian replies that he only loved her on his own terms, that they spent a lot of time together, that they have the same tastes, but that doesn't mean she has to love him back. She states that love is not the same as empathy, and that just because he's passionate doesn't mean she is too. We return to the present. Yoon reflects that even if they share interests and have spent many moments together, that doesn't mean the other person has to feel the same. That empathy and love are different things, but just for today, he thought he'd like that kind of love to exist.
After the performance, the girl thanks the audience and hopes they had a bittersweet experience. She also asks them to follow her on Instagram and expresses her wish to see them again at her next show. The couple watching her applauds. Hayne asks if they can leave now, but Yoon, curious, reminds her there's still one group left to perform. However, Hayne explains that it's almost 9 o'clock and she has to return to the studio, though she asks if he wants to stay a bit longer. The boy shakes his head and says he will leave as well. As they leave the place, the young man comments that the site she showed him is great, and he didn't know a place like that existed near his university. Hayne tells him that on weekends, sometimes famous bands perform, and there are also rock DJ parties until dawn, although other genres are mixed in too. She suggests that next time they go out, they return there and stay late. Yoon agrees and thinks it's an excellent idea. Then, Hayne sees a convenience store and asks if he wants an ice cream before leaving. The boy replies he wouldn't mind, but asks if she still has time. She answers yes, if they eat quickly. So, Yoon offers to buy them and asks what flavor she wants. She replies that he can choose the flavor for her. Finally, he gives her a lemon ice cream and Hayne thanks him. They both sit in silence, enjoying their ice creams. Then, Yoon asks if there are many clients who booked the studio today. His companion replies yes, that it's full until the last hour. She explains that it's currently university festival season and many bands go to practice, so they're very busy. Yoon becomes interested in the university festivals and remembers they will have one soon as well. He mentions it was originally scheduled for early May, but it was postponed for some reason. Hayne, upon hearing that, asks if he goes to University X, since a group from that university came that very day. The young man, curious, asks how they play, but she clarifies that she doesn't strictly evaluate club bands and that music is just to enjoy. After that brief explanation, they fall silent again, until Yoon thinks of something and asks Hayne why she decided to go out to eat with him today. The girl, curious, asks why he's asking and says the answer is obvious. It was he who invited her to eat. Yoon explains that it felt strange, since they'd never done anything like that before, and suddenly he invited her to eat and then go for a walk. Hayne looks at him curiously and reminds him they've already drunk together and had a music tasting, among other things. Yoon confirms, recalling when they did that in his apartment, and then admits he said something silly. But he reflects that, although he knows it, there's nothing more to confirm. Only that he can't believe there's someone so cheerful who wouldn't mind dying crushed by the things she loves, a wonderful person who hasn't lost her dreams or goals. The fact that there's someone like that by his side who likes the same things as he does seems incredible to him. That's why he keeps asking questions, because the only thing he needs is her consent. After finishing the ice cream, Hayne says it was delicious and that it's her first time trying it. Then she asks Yoon if they have similar culinary tastes, stating that they both like spicy food. The young man replies that they do, then he leans toward her, and in the next moment, he kisses her. After the kiss, they remain silent for a few seconds. Yoon reflects that it was cold, soft, and the best part, it tasted like lemon. Then Hayne gets up and asks if they can leave now. She explains that the people who reserved the studio will arrive soon, and she has to get it ready. Yoon replies yes, that they're leaving now. They start walking toward the studio. The young man watches her from behind and notices she's walking faster than before. That's why he can't see her expression. But then he thinks he's crazy and that in the end, he just did what he wanted. He believes he made the same mistake again, something for which she'll hate him. Hayne looks at him and asks if he's going to the station now. He confirms. Then she says she's going in a different direction and says goodbye. Yoon does the same, but first tells her he had a really good day. However, his face shows some disappointment. Then Hayne brings up the earlier thing and walks toward him with firm steps. She gives him a light punch in the stomach and declares that they'll talk about that properly another day, as she has no time now. The young man nods and says goodbye again. It is revealed that she is slightly blushing and somewhat serious. She turns around and says goodbye again. Yoon watches her one last time before lowering his gaze. But after that, he looks happy. He tells himself that it's okay, that it was something incredible. Meanwhile, at the music store, Hayne arrives, slowly runs her hand over the accessories, and sits on a chair. She crosses her legs and sits there, thoughtful, serious, and slightly blushing. She starts spinning the chair and thinks that he seemed like he wanted to tell her something, so she gave him some time. But suddenly, he kissed her. She wonders if he had planned to do it from the beginning, although she also thinks she let her guard down without realizing it. Then she says she doesn't know, that she can't think, and it's all that idiot's fault. She confesses to herself that she's going crazy, and that it feels like something is boiling inside her. At that moment, the group that reserved the studio arrives. A boy speaks to the band from University X and asks if they can use Room C. Hayne confirms and informs them that if they need more microphones or cables, they just need to tell her. They leave, and Hayne watches them. Then she tells herself she needs to calm down and put on her mask, because if someone saw her current expression, they'd think she was mocking them. Then she starts to draw something, or at least tries, because what she really wants is to go home, take a shower, and change clothes. Because in that state, she can't do anything. She feels uncomfortable. She wonders what's going on and curses Yoon, stating that he can't just kiss her out of nowhere. Back at Yoon's apartment, he's lying on the bed, reflecting on what happened. He thinks it was fresh and soft with a lemon flavor. He confesses he will probably never forget it. While staring at the full moon and its glow, he reflects that it was the first time he felt that texture of consent. But it's not the only important moment, because at the same time, in a whiskey bar, two people who know each other meet by chance, but pretend they don't. The bar owner believes he's a regular customer and that they met by chance. The young man, for his part, thinks maybe it's her day off and wonders if she'd be upset if he talked to her. Many thanks to the channel members, Raphaeltron and Sweet Tea, for their valuable support to this project. That said, see you in the next video.